Army Futures Command's modernization efforts include a new software factory designed to train soldiers to solve future challenges. The Army plans to equip soldiers to use cloud technology and new software to address problems on the battlefield. General Mike Murray is Commanding General of Army Futures Command. Thanks for being here, General. It's been just over 2 years since this command was founded. What advantages have you found in being a separate command?
But I think it's allowed us to focus. My last job was in the Pentagon, and I was absolutely amazed at how you tend to solve the problem of the day every day you walk into that building. But the ability to be separate, the ability to have a clear focus on technology, small business, innovation, the future, I think has been the significant advantage of standing up Army Futures Command.
Let's talk a little bit about the software factory. Specifically, what are your goals there, and how are you recruiting the people that you need?
Well, it's an amazing story. So the primary goal is this is going to be by soldiers for soldiers. And so I started off convinced that we had the talent in the formation. So the first cohort starts 1 January. It took us all of 3 days to recruit that first cohort. And they're all highly qualified. And then just recently, we did the announcement for the second cohort, which will start a little less than a year from now. And within a week, we had over 15,000 soldiers express interest, all serving soldiers. None of these are somebody we got to recruit. This is just the talent that's in the United States Army today.
What does that tell you? It sounds like maybe you had an untapped pool of people that was interested in this world.
That's exactly what it tells me. And out of the first cohort, which is 25, 11 of those soldiers were going on their way out of the Army because the Army was not fully utilizing that talent. So I remain convinced. As a matter of fact, I know for a fact now that we have the talent in the formation. We just got to identify it, provide us some training, and then utilize it.
You touched on that soldier-centered piece. I know that's been a big part of Army Futures Command. How has that changed the way that you approach acquisition?
It's such an amazingly easy concept. And we started off, it's based upon the book Lean Startup, customer-centered design, men-value prototyping. It just occurred to me after being involved in the front end of the acquisition process that we never involve soldiers till we get to the thing called a limited user test. And so it's way too late for soldier input at that point. The best example we've got is Integrated Visual Augmentation System, better known as IVAS. Where soldiers and engineers are iterating every 3 weeks to make sure that we understand the needs of the user, in this case, or the customer, in this case, our soldiers, up front in the development process, well before we ever lock in the requirements. And so we account for that before we lock in the requirements.
Does that make the process move faster overall? Were you finding that, you get to this limited user test and suddenly this isn't exactly what you thought it was?
Well, that's what we're trying to fix. And so you don't get to a LUT or a limited user test without a clear understanding of what's most important to the user or the soldier. So it may slow down the front end of it, but the way we had done stuff in the past was we were constantly changing requirements to account for things we were discovering in the limited user test or the initial operation test and evaluation. And so if we account for all that early in the process, then I think overall the process will, and it's proving out, does move faster.
And you have, these things you're learning in Army Futures Command. Are you having success in feeding some of these lessons learned back into the big Army?
Oh, yeah. So we had a session with a number of GOs virtually last week, general officers across the Army. And so it's a campaign of learning for the Army, but I really think it is starting to catch on. And this year, this coming year for Army Futures Command, and my personal goal is to establish momentum for the things that we're learning. So the feeding it back into the Army, every opportunity I get to talk to soldiers, and the general officers I talk to are excited. And if you want to see excitement, talk to a bunch of E5s and E6s, young soldiers that will see the fruits of our labor in terms of giving them the tools they're going to need on a future battlefield.
What are you seeing from industry? This is a change for maybe the way they've done business as well. And are you getting what you need on that end?
I am. Industry has been incredibly cooperative. Industry is as interested in getting input from soldiers as we are because it shortens their process and ultimately saves them money in the end. So the soldier participation, I think they're very excited about the processes we're trying to get in place to speed up the the acquisition cycle. And it's, my role is really the requirements part of it at the very beginning. But overall, the delivery of material to our soldiers in a more rapid and timely fashion, and this concept of software designed as much as possible, or software based as much as possible, so that we do upgrades. We're not upgrading hardware, we're upgrading software. I think industry is and should be very excited about that.
With just about a minute to go, General, I know the Defense Department writ large has sought to also, connect with some of the smaller companies, with startups. What's the role of Army Futures Command in that, and what are you seeing there?
Outreach, because I'm convinced we have confused small business and innovators and entrepreneurs for a number of years, because we're not consistent in our message. And when you're talking about a small business or an entrepreneur, they have a hard time doing business with the Department of Defense. So simplifying that process, and really what I'm focused on is making sure that they understand what problems we're trying to solve. Because in that community, they are much more innovative than the United States Army or DOD, to be honest with you, in terms of how they go after solving problems. So introducing them to our problems in plain English that they can understand, and helping us solve our problems, and providing that outreach, and then as much as possible making that process easier for them to navigate is really our role.
Thank you so much for the time, General.
All right, thank you. Have a great day.